Hi, my name is Kaeyi and this is this week's video roundup for HardwareHeaven.com. We've got some gaming news for you that should keep you excited for what's coming up in the future, as well as a Guild Wars 2 review and what happens next at endgame, and a Logitech G600 mouse review. Stay tuned. Let's hop right into the news for this week. BioWare Star Wars The Old Republic General Manager Matthew Bromberg announced that their 6 weekly updates should be on schedule for the future. This means players of Star Wars The Old Republic MMO should receive a good content update every 6 weeks. This could be anything from a new war zone, a new operation, a new waypoint, anything content related that they can add into the game in small doses to keep people entertained and craving for more. This is something they are really eager to stick to, having a schedule where players will know that they are going to get content updates. You've got 6 weeks to complete what they just gave out, and you've got 6 weeks to wait till the next update. Obsidian have announced Project Eternity, which is a story RPG with a dynamic combat system. Now, they reached $1.1 million on their Kickstarter account and have finally stopped the countdown and announced that they will be working on this project. Apparently there's going to be a mature story focusing on difficult choices within the game. Now, they have a great lineup for developers working on this RPG, people such as Chris Avalon, Tim Kaine and Josh Sawyer. They have worked on games such as Fallout, Fallout 2, Fallout New Vegas, Knights of the Old Republic and PlanetSide, so hopefully, fingers crossed, this should be something to be excited about. Bethesda have released a new trailer for their new FPS game Dishonored. Now, if you've seen or heard anything of Dishonored, it is a very particular style of genre. There are various ways that you can kill people in this kind of stealth but also quite aggressive killing game. You can stop time, you can blink and portal to other buildings, and they announced some different varieties of kills that you can achieve in the game, such as rat suicide bombers and mid-air possessions. So I'm going to show you a little clip of the video so you can feast your eyes on what to expect.
The thing we really wanted to do was give the player decisions to make, give the player choices and have some consequences to those choices. And some have lightweight or subtle consequences, and some are purely aesthetic.
Choice matter because in the media video game, you can make choices where the movies doesn't allow you to make choices. So having the consequences to what you do and seeing how the simulation deals with your choices, it feels like the player has full ownership of his experience.
My goal is that everything that the player wants to do, you should be able to do it. As you can go everywhere, then it has to be functional everywhere. If he sees a door, it's an openable door. If he sees a roof, he should be able to climb there, and he knows that this is a valid...
As with last week, ArenaNet have been working day in, day out to get the content as well as some fix patches up for Guild Wars 2. Now, there has been some sizable changes to the professions in Guild Wars 2. There's been some tweaks. There's still things that need to be worked on. If you visit the forums, you can see the huge amount of posts on there that players are recommending things that can be changed to professions. Now, there has been a few developer posts of interest. One in particular that has stuck in my mind is one that I saw last night by Colin Johansson in reply to people complaining about the difficulty of the dungeons. Now, Colin goes into talking about how people complained about the difficulty of Guild Wars 1 when they first released some new dungeons in their previous game, and that he said it will take a decent amount of time to learn how to play the game properly to get to the point where you are finding these dungeons of a decent amount of difficulty. At the moment, he's expecting people to find them hard, and they will not be making them easier. They wanted the difficulty to stay the same as the difficulty was in Guild Wars 1, and that is what they want from their game. So you require skill and a decent amount of knowledge to actually complete the harder explorable versions of the dungeons. Hopefully now there are some fixes with the professions. I know the Necromancer, the class that I play, is being looked at very much in depth by John Peters, and hopefully we should be seeing some fixes to those certain professions that are having troubles at the moment, and it should be better all around in the near future. A few World v World changes that are quite notable and could affect people. If you have Stone Mist Castle, you used to get 50 points per interval, and that is now 35. And the score intervals have gone from 5 minutes up till 15 minutes. These changes did take place in preparation for the week-long World v World matches, so hopefully, fingers crossed, they are going to balance things out. It's not going to snowball as much as we have been seeing, and that overall the World v World experience should be better for everyone on the whole. Now, a little bit of insight to me. My favourite game as a child was Oddworld, Abe's Odyssey and Abe's Exodus. Now, I was extremely excited to find out that Oddworld's Strangest Wrath has now been revamped into HD and is available on Steam. There is an odd box collection where you can buy all 4 of the games for $12.99. Personally, I think that is a great offer. I've also looked into it in further detail and found out that Abe's Oddworld, the originals, are being completely remade. The Oddworld, Abe's Exodus and Abe's Odyssey are going to be remade from the ground up, and we should expect to see them in their new HD revamped format in summer of 2013. Now for the review section of our show this week. This is going to be on Guild Wars 2. Now, Guild Wars 2 has been out for around 3 weeks now, if my math serves me correctly. If you haven't heard about Guild Wars 2, I will first ask if you live under a rock. If you have heard about it, then you'll probably know a lot of the things I'm talking about. However, this is going to be more of a review on how I think things have panned out, how they are at end game, and how generally the overall feel of the game is once you hit level 80, and what exactly you can do once you are at end game. Now, just to give you a bit of a background, Guild Wars 2 is set in the same universe as Guild Wars 1, but the game itself is entirely different. There are 5 races: the human, Norn, Char, Asura and Sylvari, as well as 8 professions: the warrior, guardian, thief, ranger, mesmer, necro, elementalist and engineer. 8. You can play any race and profession combination. So, as with most MMOs, you pick your race, you pick the profession, class that you want to play, and you set on your travels. Now with Guild Wars 2, there isn't the standard linear quest type system that you have seen in most MMOs of the past. There are the Renowned Hearts. Now, the Renowned Hearts are little literal hearts that you see on your map. When you first discover them, they will be empty. You can run up to the heart or the area around the heart. On the right side of your screen will be a quest objective that can pop up. Now, you will see it. It could be anything from feeding cows, watering plants, killing centaurs. Stereotypical description of a heart here in Guild Wars 2, but that is the things that you can encounter. So you'll have quite a variety of objectives that you can do in the game. It's not collect 10 of this and that is the only thing that you can do to fill up that heart. Now, the other type of things that you can do in game are dynamic events. Dynamic events are designed to happen around the hearts that you are doing. It will help towards your heart, so you can find yourself doing an event, filling up the heart, as well as getting karma, experience and gold for the event that you're doing. Now, you do this throughout the entire game. You're doing hearts, events, big, massive, dynamic meta events, massive dragons that you can't even imagine how big these guys are. They are huge. They make your character look absolutely tiny. So you've got those to run into as well. Soon you'll start seeing patterns. You'll start seeing chains of events. Now, in zones there are meta events, and certain events lead to other events. If you fail an event, another event might link from that, and eventually it could link to a big boss fight such as a giant boss you've got to fight that's stamping on you, or a big dragon that could fly in and try and freeze you into ice. So there are various things that you can do around the world. Now, once you get to kind of level 70, this does change. You kind of go from the hearts, the renowned things that you just run around to discover and complete, and you go to zones that just rely heavily on events only. Now, this encourages you to explore. You can do the events, see the bosses, and you'll be doing your personal story along the way as well. Now, personal story is kind of a more linear questing approach, but it is what it says on the tin. It's your personal story for your character. You make choices in your personal story, and depending on what choices you decide to make, leads you off onto a different path. You probably won't ever have the same personal story experience as one of your friends unless you so happened to choose exactly the same options as they did. It is really exciting. It does bring a whole new life to the game, and it really does carry you through the questing. The personal story gives you a lot of XP, and they are quite lengthy quests. I mean, some of them are up to half an hour long, and there's cutscenes, they've got the cinematics, and you really get to know the characters in the game as well. It's a very lore-driven aspect of the game. So you do have the option to, you know, really go hard on your personal story, or just have that explorable fun with your friends, doing hearts, events, and bosses like that. As well, with most other MMOs, there is also dungeons that you can do in Guild Wars 2. Now, there are 8 different dungeons you can do. Now, the story mode, again, is much like a kind of personal story. You get to know the story of the characters in the game. You get to know why they're there, what they're trying to do, what their kind of method is behind this whole game, and, you know, essentially defeating Zaitan, which is the kind of big boss guy in Guild Wars 2 at the moment. So you're doing the personal story, you're then doing the dungeon stories, and once you get to certain levels, you can start doing explorables. However, the explorables seem very tailored to level 80. They are difficult, very, very difficult. They require a structured group. They require tactics. They require you to know your classes, know what to do, what each skill does. And personally, they are aimed for level 80s. I'm a level 80 necromancer, and I have full exotics, which is the best gear that you can get in game. Every single slot apart from my back, because you can't get it, is exotic, and I still struggle in some explorable modes. I haven't completed all the paths yet because there are tons and tons to do at level 80. I would say that it's panned out great. There is needed work to be done on certain dungeons, but they are working on it. They know that the issues are there. The content is 100% definitely there. If you're not into PvE, you can World v World, which is a server versus server versus server, big long battle in its own map. You capture towers and keeps, and you can use siege weapons to attack the enemies. There's also structured PvP as well as tournament PvP. If you immerse yourself into Guild Wars 2, there is a ton to do. But if you're looking for a game that you go in, you have a gear treadmill, and you want raiding, and you want constantly more gear and more gear and more gear to get, then this is not the game for you. However, if you want decent quality content, well-written storylines, bosses that you will enjoy, and PvP that is easily some of the best PvP that I have played, then Guild Wars 2 is definitely a game that you will enjoy and you can play for a decent amount of time, but not because you're on a treadmill that keeps you with a carrot hanging on the end of a stick wanting more and more and more. You want to play it because the story and the lore and the decent content in the game is great. Now let's move on to the review section of this week's video, and as I previously told you guys, we are looking at the G600 Logitech MMO gaming mouse. Now, this mouse will probably most compared to a Razer Naga, which is actually the mouse of my choice currently. So that's predominantly what we are going to be comparing it to today. First of all, the first thing that you will notice is this mouse is white. Now, it's something we don't normally see in mouse these days. Now, it actually has 20 buttons. There are 12 on the side, the left and right click, as well as a middle 2 buttons here, the middle click, and it also goes to the left and the right sides, as well as a 3rd click on the right. The ridges are designed so that the flat sections are in the middle and that the buttons actually tilt, so that you can obviously see that they are designed to be in those 2 sections. The only thing I find annoying with this is that actually there isn't a smooth glide between the buttons. If you are gaming and you're going from, say, number 2 down to number 11, it is quite difficult to slide. It requires more movement to actually move your thumb up and down to get those buttons in, rather than just a pure slide is something that I would do with the Naga. The size of the mouse is great. I actually prefer the shape of this than the Naga itself. It is a lot wider than the Naga is at the top, and I find that this actually gives a wider surface for your hand to actually rest on, and it definitely feels there's more control when you're holding it. I mean, as I've previously stated, I do have quite small hands, but generally the fit of the Logitech G600 is better. If we look at the bottom, rather than the typical grips that you normally see around the bottom, it has these 2 grips at the top and bottom of the mouse. Now, what I like about these is they aren't actually detachable kind of sticky grips that you put on them. It's actually built in, which is great, because if you can see the bottom of my Naga, they've actually come off, and I need to get a replacement for these. So these do come off, which is quite annoying because you feel like you've got to spend additional money to actually buy replacement grips on the bottom. Whereas, as I said, the Logitech is just built in. It is really, really smooth. I really like the feel of this mouse on a mouse mat. I've said before, the Razer Naga is quite stiff, it's sticky, and this does feel smooth. I just find that in comparison, they have tried to make it cooler by splitting it into 2 sections so you have easy navigation. However, the way that they've made them tilted and raised, it just makes it more frustrating to actually get to the button. And for a PvE player, maybe in MMOs, it's not such a big a problem. But if you bind your 1 to 10 skills, for example in Guild Wars 2, in PvP, and you need to get to number 10 as quick as possible, this is going to stop you, and your reaction times are going to be slowed down, which is something that is critical for tournament or any sort of structured ranking PvP that you would play. Even if you were playing an FPS game or something like StarCraft 2, you would need the quick reaction times, and I think this definitely prevents you, and it's something that would stop high-end hardcore players actually purchasing this mouse. If they changed that, if they just had the smooth buttons on the side, again, as I said, this mouse would be perfect. Now, I've just plugged this in to actually show you guys what the lighting and what the numbers on the side say. As you can see that this is changing from a various spectrum of colours. You can actually set it to stay on one colour like you would with the Naga. It's just going to go around all of its various colours. The thing that also annoys me with the left hand side is that they've actually marked these as kind of the end numbers, so it starts from 9 and gets to 20. Now personally, I like the fact that on the Naga it is 1 through to 12. That makes sense to me. 1 through to 12, that's great. If you are paying attention to the numbers, which you do when you first get one of these mice, once you've got comfortable as to where the positions are, the numbers are, you don't care what it says on here. They could be completely gone and it's fine. It's like getting a new phone. You get used to the keypad and then you don't care what it says. You know how to text, you know how to send emails, you don't even look at the keyboard anymore. But to begin with, if this was your first MMO mouse, if you had 9 bound to 1, it would really confuse you. You'd be looking for 1, realise it's 9, you'd be looking for 10, realise it's 16. It would be really confusing, and I think that's something as well that puts me off using this mouse, is the fact that the numbers seem wrong to me. I love the contrast of the white and black, I really do, and I really love the colours that are shown. I love the smoothness, I love the bottom, but just the fact that the numbers aren't in numerical order and the fact that it's got the ridges that prevents it being smooth just makes it quite difficult for it to be a high-end professional gaming mouse. It would be something for more of a casual MMO player who wouldn't really be bothered about those reaction times, wouldn't really be worried that the fact it may take them another half a second to get to where they want to be. But for me personally, that is something that's really important. The way that it is built, the sheer size of it, the way it fits in your hand, it just feels like it belongs in your hand. It's like an extension to your arm, whereas the Naga is thin. It feels like you're gripping onto it for dear life. And also the Naga buttons are quite in a small amount of space, whereas the Logitech ones are bigger, more bulkier, easier to press. I just wish the surfaces were flat, as I've said. It does have a gaming grade laser tracking that will apparently sense even the slightest of nudges, which I can confirm that even just the slight movement that I'm doing now, it does pick it up really well. Much like the Naga, it has got a braided cable, which means it won't get tangled. They are really long lasting, they're hard wearing, and personally I find them great. You can have 3 onboard memory profiles that will switch between the colour selections that you want, the keybinds that you want, also the tracking as well, and you can switch these at any point and they do stay on board. The mouse does also come in black. However, personally I think the white is actually one of the best features of the mouse. I like the fact that it stands out. I like the fact that it's not the typical either matte or shiny black. In regards to pricing, it does come in at £69.99, which is a pretty decent price. It's about the same as the Naga, so again, you can tell that the Naga will be its biggest rival just from the design of the mouse. I would recommend this mouse. If someone asked me, do you like the Logitech G600? I would recommend it. I think it's a great mouse. It's really sturdy. It feels secure. It feels great in your hand. But I would say that I wouldn't use it for something such as a professional tournament match or something that would require quick reactions and speed, purely for the fact that you're binding those buttons. If you are one of those players that has a lot of keybinds on your keyboard and use the buttons on your mouse for things like macros or special abilities or, you know, toggling things, then that is absolutely fine. If you play like me, where you have your actual skills on your skill bar attached to these buttons, if you have 1 to 10 binded so you don't touch your keyboard at all apart from moving and cameras, then I would not recommend this mouse. But again, it's completely how you play. Thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you liked this week's video. If you haven't checked out last week's video, please click on the link below and I will see you next time. Bye!